Hello friends, welcome to Dungeons & Dragonfly, where I adapt various characters for use in D&D. I'm Dragonfly9078, and today I'm building Pterodax, or as he's better known, Makuta, from Bionicle. After the build, if you enjoy it, hey, maybe check out my Patreon, if you want. So what do we want from this build? Well, Pterodax can do anything that the Crota can do, and there are 42 different varieties of those, so we need all of those powers. His own innate powers are based on the shadow element though, so we'll pick up some stuff that's especially dark and spooky. And finally, we'll steal that pesky Takanuva's Mask of Light and gain some radiant power of our own. Looking over at ability scores, I'll be using the standard point array. If you want to roll for stats, that's fine, just make sure your strength, intelligence, and charisma are high enough to multiclass. Starting off with a 14 in strength, our armor isn't part of our body, unlike other Bionicles, but it's still full plate, so we need the strength to wear it. We can dump dexterity, we're more of a schemer than a jumper. Constitution is 13. Pterodax is the main villain, he needs to be able to take a few hits, and he's one of, if not the smartest being in Bionicle, so we'll make intelligence 15, and aim to cap it by the end of the build. Wisdom is only 10, we don't really need it for much, and it's too fun to bait the Toa and give them a chance to fail when the smart thing would be just, killing them outright. Then we'll finish off with a 12 in charisma, since Pterodax is a clever speaker and manipulator. Most Bionicle characters are biomechanical, but Pterodax is actually a massive antidermis in a suit of armor. So we're going to make him a plasmoid. We get +2 to our strength and +1 to our charisma, and we count as an ooze rather than a humanoid. As an action, we can extend makeshift limbs and a head, and as a bonus action, we can extend a pseudopod that's up to 10 feet long and 6 inches across to manipulate things from afar. It's not especially strong, it can only lift about 10 pounds and it can't make attacks. It's kind of like the Mage Hand cantrip. It can do most things that can, so just think of it like that. We do have 60 feet of dark vision, we're resistant to acid and poison damage, along with having advantage on saves against being poisoned. We can hold our breath for an hour, and thanks to our amorphous body, we get advantage on checks to grapple someone or escape from a grapple. Plus, if we aren't wearing or carrying anything, we can squeeze through gaps that are only an inch wide. Now, the Brotherhood of Makuta was an order created by Mata Nui that later grew ambitious and rose up against him, so we'll use the Golgari agent background. That'll give us proficiency with nature, and we'll switch survival out to get deception instead. We also get Poisoner's Kit proficiency, and a bunch of Golgari spells. Starting off as a Paladin, since Makuta does think that he's doing the right thing, and the right thing is him being ultimately powerful. We get 2 Paladin skills, I'll say Athletics and Intimidation, along with heavy armor and martial weapons. I mentioned before that we wear full plate, and our Staff of Shadows is clearly some kind of polearm or battle axe or warhammer, I guess, something like that. Paladins can lay on hands, giving us a pool of points equal to 5 times our Paladin level that refills on a long rest. As an action, we can touch a creature and expend points to heal them for that amount, or spend 5 points to neutralize a disease or poison. Since we can use this on ourselves, that qualifies for the quick healing Crota. We also have a Divine Sense. A number of times per day equal to 1 plus our charisma modifier, we can open our senses as an action and learn the location of any celestials, fiends, or undead within 60 feet. I'm not sure if we can sense the Toa with this, but I'd probably call Mata Nui a celestial at least. Second level Paladins get a fighting style, and Blessed Warrior gives us 2 cantrips from the Cleric list. Sacred Flame is the Plasma Crota, dropping, quote, flame-like radiance, unquote, on an enemy, ignoring cover and dealing up to 4d8 radiant damage if they fail a dexterity save. And Mending doesn't correspond to any of the Crota really, but it does help us fix up our armor after a battle. We also get Paladin spells at this level, like Compel Duel to challenge a Toa to a one-on-one fight, and Cure Wounds for some more quick healing. Of course, instead of casting the spells, we can also burn them with Divine Smite, when we hit with a melee weapon attack, dealing an extra 2d8 radiant damage by burning a first level slot, and increasing the damage by 1d8 for each higher level slot, capping off at 5d8, though against a fiend or undead we get another d8 for free, so capping out at 6d8. At 3rd level we become immune to disease, probably since we're, just a blob of energy and goo, and since we're resistant to poison already, that means we can save our lay on hands to just heal. We're only going to use it on ourselves after all, especially once we take the Oath of Treachery. Our oath spells are Charm Person, which lets us charm a humanoid if they fail a wisdom save, and Expeditious Retreat, so we can dash as a bonus action. Once per rest, we can channel our divinity, choosing between 2 options. Conjure Duplicate uses the Illusion Crota to create an illusory duplicate of ourselves. We can move it around as a bonus action. If we attack a creature that's within 5 feet of both us and the duplicate, we have advantage, and we can even cast spells from its space, though we do still use our own senses. The duplicate lasts for up to a minute, but we have to maintain concentration on it like we would a spell. Alternatively, Poison Strike replicates the Poison Crota, applying poison to our weapon as a bonus action. The next time we hit with that weapon in the next minute, we deal an extra 2d10 plus our Paladin level poison damage, or if we had advantage on the attack, we forego rolling and just deal the full 20 plus Paladin level instead. So that's 4 Krata in 3 levels, which is great, but we have a long way to go and 38 more slugs to get through, so we're jumping over to Wizard to get Arcane Recovery, which lets us regain expended spell slots once per day when we take a short rest. We can get back slots whose total level is up to half of our Wizard level rounded up, but none of them can be over 5th level. We get 3 cantrips at 1st level. Shocking Grasp uses the Electricity Krata to deal up to 4d8 lightning damage with a melee spell attack, which we get advantage on if the target is wearing metal armor, as, most of the Tuath do. If we hit, we also jolt the enemy so they can't take reactions for a turn. I'm not entirely clear on what the difference is between the Heat Vision and Laser Vision Krata, so I'm combining the two into Firebolt, a ranged spell attack that hits for up to 4d10 fire damage and can ignite objects. Our third is Chill Touch, a ranged spell attack that deals up to 4d8 necrotic damage on a hit, prevents the target from healing for a turn, and gives undead disadvantage to attack us. For our 6 first level spells, Absorb Elements covers both the fire and ice resistance Krata, giving us resistance to an energy type as a reaction to being hit with that type, then adding a d6 of that damage to our next melee attack. Entangle is Plant Control, growing a 20-foot square of weeds and vines that grasp at enemies, restraining them if they fail a strength save, and turning the area into difficult terrain. Then Shield isn't a Krata, but it is a good spell. A quick +5 to our AC as a reaction to being attacked. The Sonic's Krata gives us Thunder Wave, a 15-foot cube of thunder that blows creatures back 10 feet and deals 2d8 damage on a failed Constitution save. And Sleep is, predictably enough, the Sleep Krata, putting 5d8 HP worth of creatures in a 20-foot radius to sleep. Of course, we also need to create more Krata, so we'll grab Find Familiar. None of the options are exactly right for an evil slug, but making a fiendish poisonous snake is pretty good. At 2nd level, we get to pick an arcane tradition, so we'll go with the Mage of Silverquill. As an eloquent apprentice, we'll round off our social skills with Persuasion and Insight, and pick up Vicious Mockery to dismantle our enemies physically and emotionally at the same time. Silverquill mages get silvery barbs, but not the spell. It works similarly, making a creature within 60 feet re-roll an attack, ability check, or save, and take the lower roll. But instead of giving another creature advantage on their next attack, ability check, or save, they can re-roll one of those that they make in the next minute and take the higher result. Doesn't have to be the next one, just one in the next minute. So it's kind of like the Bardic Inspiration. We can use this any number of times if it doesn't work, but if we use it on a creature and they do fail the check, we can't use it again unless we take a long rest or burn a spell slot to use it again. We get 2 more first level spells here as well. Cause Fear is a power of our mask, but also of the Fear Krata, frightening a creature for up to a minute with our concentration if they fail a wisdom save. And Featherfall isn't really related to any of the Krata unless you kind of squint, but it is a good spell to have so we don't take fall damage. For 2nd level spells, we'll keep on using our mask along with the Anger Krata for Crown of Madness. We charm a humanoid that fails a wisdom save, and while charmed, they have to use their action each turn before moving to attack a creature of our choice. The Adaptation Krata gives us Alter Self, letting us alter our body to survive underwater, or to disguise ourselves as another creature, good for the infiltrating and long cons that Makuta is so fond of. At 4th level, the Shadow Touched Feat feels appropriate, rounding off our intelligence to 16 and letting us cast Inflict Wounds and Invisibility once per day for free each, then with spell slots as normal afterward. Our cantrip at this level echoes the Power Scream Krata with Thunderclap, an enormous burst of sound that can be heard from far away, and deals up to 4d6 thunder damage if a creature is close enough and fails a Constitution save. Detect Thoughts uses the Mind Reading Krata to hear the surface thoughts of a creature we focus on. We can try to delve deeper, but if the creature passes an intelligence save, we're thrown out, and whether they pass or fail, the spell ends and they know we were in their head. People tend to be a bit unreasonably upset about their minds being invaded, so it's a good thing we also have the Stasis Field Krata in Hold Person, paralyzing a humanoid if they fail a wisdom save. For 3rd level spells, Fear is like an upgraded Cause Fear, frightening creatures in a 30-foot cone if they fail their save. If they fail, they also drop whatever they're holding and have to spend their turns running away from us until they can't see us anymore or pass another wisdom save. While on the subject of upgrading earlier Krata, Major Image is an upgrade to our Conjured Duplicate, letting us make an illusion of anything as long as it fits within a 20-foot cube, not just ourselves. We can make the illusion move, make sounds, anything we want really so it's more convincing, plus it lasts up to 10 minutes with concentration. 6th level Silverquill mages get Inky Shroud, adding darkness to our Book of Krata. We can cast darkness once per day without a spell slot, and as normal afterward, but when we don't use a spell slot, the spell is enhanced. Darkness normally creates a 15-foot radius sphere of magical darkness that can't be seen through by dark vision or lit up by non-magical light or light from a spell lower than 2nd level, But when we cast it without a spell slot, we can see through it normally, and whenever a creature starts their turn in the dark, we can have them take 2d10 psychic damage. The density control Krata allows us to change our own density so we can shift into a gaseous form that resists damage, and can float and pass through small cracks, though we then treat water as solid. And the slowness Krata slows down up to 6 creatures in a 40-foot cube who fail a wisdom save. While slowed, their movement speed is halved, they get -2 to their AC and dexterity saves, and they can't take reactions. They can only make one attack in a given turn, they can take an action or a bonus action during their turn, but not both, and if they cast a spell that takes an action to cast, they roll a d20. On an 11 or higher, it's delayed until their next turn, when they have to use their action to complete the spell, or just lose it entirely. 7th level wizards get 4th level Krata, like the aptly named Confusion Krata. Creatures in a 10-foot radius around a point we choose make a wisdom save, or become confused. While confused, they can't take reactions, and every turn they have to roll a d10 to see if they move randomly and don't take an action, attack randomly and don't move or take an action, or move and act normally. The Gravity Krata gives us Gravity Sinkhole, a 20-foot radius sphere of crushing force that pulls creatures in its area towards the center if they fail a Constitution save, even up into the air, also dealing 5d10 force damage, half on a successful save. Shadow Touch was the only feat that I wanted, so the rest of our ability score improvements will go towards improving our ability scores. In this case, we'll round off our Constitution and Charisma to 14 each. Now, one of the more troublesome Krata to figure out was Elasticity. It was not really a good spell for stretching. There is, however, one that turns our body rubbery so attacks bounce off and deal less damage, and that's Stone Skin, giving us resistance to non-magical piercing, slashing, and bludgeoning damage. Alternatively, we can use the 2nd level Dodge Krata to be hard to hit in the first place, as Blur gives all attacks against us disadvantage. Both of our spells at 9th level use the Vacuum Krata. First up, Control Winds lets us control the wind in a 100-foot cube, either changing the direction or making an updraft or downdraft. A creature moving against the wind has to spend an extra foot of movement for each foot they move, and ranged weapon attacks have disadvantage. An updraft increases jump height by 10 feet while also halving fall damage, and a downdraft also gives ranged attacks disadvantage while knocking any flying creatures prone if they fail a strength save. For a more directly combative use, Pulse Wave blasts a 30-foot cone with pressure, dealing 6d6 force damage to every creature who fails a Constitution save, along with either pulling or pushing them 15 feet, half damage and no movement on a success. 10th level Silver Quill mages can infuse their spells with eloquence to affect the minds of their target. A number of times per day equal to our proficiency, when we cast a spell that deals damage, we can choose to have it deal either psychic or radiant damage instead of its normal damage. If we do, the spell deals additional damage equal to our proficiency bonus, then frightens any creature it damaged if we chose psychic, or charms them if we chose radiant. And speaking of damaging spells, True Strike is not one. It's also not very good. In fact, it's kind of actively terrible. It does make for a decent accuracy Krata though, and fun fact, it's actually decent in Pathfinder from what I've heard. I know that's fucked up, but it's true. We can grab Hold Monster to enhance our stasis field so we don't have a humanoid restriction and can stasis any Rahi that cross our path, and Telekinesis makes for a good magnetism Krata, letting us levitate and move objects and creatures for up to 10 minutes with our concentration. Another pair of Krata that I'm not quite clear on the difference between are Disintegration and Molecular Disruption. They seem to do basically the same thing, and the description for Molecular Disruption literally says it disintegrates things, so I'm just going to combine the two into Disintegrate, a ray that forces a dexterity save, dealing 10d6 plus 40 force damage on a fail, and completely disintegrating the target if that leaves them with 0 HP. There's also a Chain Lightning Krata, Chain Lightning, I guess? So convenient how so many of these Krata have the same name as spells. Anyway, we shoot a bolt at a target, then it forks to 3 more targets within 30 feet of the first, dealing 10d8 lightning damage on a failed dexterity save. We'll be getting 2 more ASIs this build, so we'll focus on capping intelligence. Then we'll pick up Soul Cage, so we can kill a creature and assimilate their soul to empower ourselves with their knowledge and vitality. Now that kind of sounds like the Hunger Krata, but it's actually just something Makuta can do unrelated to any Krata as far as I know. We will get the Hunger Krata too, of course, as Vampiric Touch lets us touch a creature and deal 3d6 necrotic damage to them, while healing ourselves for half that. Then we can keep making those attacks every turn while we maintain concentration. Getting up to the really high level Krata now, Etherealness improves our density control, so we can basically just straight up turn into a ghost for 8 hours by stepping into the ethereal plane. And Whirlwind summons a whirlwind that's 30 feet high and has a 10-foot radius. Any creature it passes over has to make a dexterity save or take 10d6 bludgeoning damage, and a strength save if they're large or smaller, to avoid being restrained and lifted into the air until the spell ends. 14th level Silver Quill mages learn a Word of Power. Now we do get one that we can use the reaction to another creature getting hit to split that damage between us and that creature, but that's not really Pterodactyl's style. Instead, we'll use the Word of Deadly Despair. Whenever we successfully use our silvery barbs to make a creature fail their check, we can give that creature vulnerability to any damage type of our choice until our next turn. Pro tip, cast a big damage spell like, say, Chain Lightning, then if they pass their save, silvery barbs them and give them lightning vulnerability. There aren't any more 7th level spells that I want, so we'll jump all the way back to 2nd level for the Shattering and Silence Krata. Shatter is a 10-foot radius sphere that deals 3d8 thunder damage on a failed Constitution save, with creatures made of inorganic materials like metal and stone having disadvantage on their save. And Silence is exactly what it sounds like. Or doesn't sound like, I guess, because silence. Anyway, it's a 20-foot radius sphere that sound can't pass through, blocking all thunder damage and preventing spells with verbal components from being cast. Dominate Monster lets us take control of any Rahi nearby, letting us issue them simple general commands telepathically if they fail a wisdom save. We can also use our action to assume direct control, choosing exactly what they do during their turn. And somewhat predictably, the Weather Control Krata gives us Control Weather. We take control of the weather within 5 miles for up to 8 hours. We can change the precipitation, from clear to torrential rain or snow, the temperature, from Arctic cold to unbearably hot, and the wind strength and direction, from calm to storm force winds. With our last ASI, we'll cap off our intelligence, then we'll jump back a bit to pick up the Teleportation Krata with Dimension Door, a teleport that can take us to any spot we can see, visualize, or describe within 500 feet. And we'll dip into the Golgari spell list for Insect Plague, which summons a 20-foot radius swarm of locusts that obscure the area, count as difficult terrain, and bite any creature who enters the sphere or ends its turn there, dealing 4d10 piercing damage on a failed Constitution save. Our capstone is the 17th level of Wizard for 9th level spells. Shape Change lets us shift our form to any creature whose CR is less than our level and that we have seen before, keeping our class features and mental stats. We can stay in that form, or use our action to shift to a new one. And our last Krata is Invulnerability, which makes us completely immune to damage while the spell lasts. Nice and simple. Now that the build is complete, the question becomes, how good is it? Well, the sheer variety of our abilities is astounding. Whether it's travel, damage, infiltration, whatever, we have a spell that can do it. Might take a bit of time to cast or require concentration, but we can do pretty much anything we want. With that in mind, we're hard to put down, even with our 17 wizard hit dice. We have heavy armor and the shield spell for 23 AC, plus damage reduction, healing, and if all else fails, complete invulnerability. We're especially good at dealing with teams, since we have big AoEs to do damage, along with ways to frighten, hinder, and turn them against each other, so we can stand up to whole teams of Toa all by ourselves. On the other hand, we're really bad at dexterity, which is a really common saving throw, so we could end up taking some damage from something as generic as a fireball. And if we do take damage, we could be in real trouble. We've only got around 120 HP on average, so a few bad dexterity saves and we're in power word kill range, which does get through invulnerability. And finally, from the perspective of the player, we could just have too many options, honestly. We can only prepare 22 of our 38 wizard spells and 3 paladin spells, which I know sounds like a lot, but since they all do such different things, there's a very good chance we'll run into something that one of our unprepared spells can deal with easily. Decision paralysis is a very real thing.
Anger amongst them will threaten their precious unity. Hunger will consume their duty. And fear will keep them from their destiny. They will not disturb you.
Thank you for watching, friends. I hope you enjoyed the build. The next one will be a Patreon request, so no character poll this week, but if you have any feedback or suggestions for characters you'd like to see me build, please leave them in the comments below, and they could show up in a future poll. Leave a like or subscribe if you want to see more, and if you want to support what I'm doing here, you can check the description for the link to my Patreon, for access to the Discord channel, early access to future builds, and exclusive Patreon content. Thanks again for watching. I will see y'all later.